Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be, and thank you for joining us. I'm your guest host, and it is really my pleasure to be here once again. I'm really thankful to this podcast for the opportunity to appear once again as your host. And again, I've got a fantastic, terrific, sensational guest again. I know you all know him. It's Mr. KP Wee. KP, how are you?
The standard answer would be great. That's what people want to hear. But every day's busy. It's just work related. It's a lot of things, life related, right? Like not a lot of time for writing, unfortunately. But it's always like I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's always a pleasure to be speaking here with you on this platform, and excited to get started.
Yeah, thank you, KP. Actually, you just touched on something I do want to ask about, but I'm going to hold off on that. And I want to ask a question about back to school. We've done a lot of sports, so I want to kind of take it back into maybe what you do with education and schooling, and maybe tie that back into coaching. As we're recording, it's almost back to school time for many people. And by the time I think this goes to air, goes to broadcast, it'll be either that first week back or around there. So a lot of people, and I know some people who listen to us are, I'll say, looking forward to getting back to school. So what are you doing to get yourself prepared for the classroom? And I know that you're about to be very busy as an educator.
I am a person who unfortunately is not very organized. I have a lot of files on my computer. I have like handouts that I prepared that I've uploaded to my personal website. And I have like, various like notebooks. I mean, like literal notebooks that you pick up at the dollar store. And I have written notes, divided into different subjects. Now, of course, that sounds like I'm organized, but the reason I say I'm not organized is like I have different places to go. Like I might be, bringing these notebooks to one school, and then I might, leave those there because I know I'm gonna get back, next day or next week and use those again. But then if I only have one copy or one set of those things, like if I leave it somewhere, then it's, I won't have it um at another place. Now, of course, I have a lot of those things online, but of course, like because do have a large number of resources, it's not easy for me to remember each and one of them, each and every one of them, because like I have like thousands of handouts and resources that again I put on my website. But like I can try to organize it as much as I can, but it takes time. And I also, like I said, like to handwrite things out as reminders. And even like equipment, right? I was an interesting thing I was telling some of my students today, like because I was typing the notes for them on the Zoom, or I guess the Teams. It was actually Teams. I was typing the notes, and then I was typing, and then suddenly the words, no words came out, and I was like, oh, okay, because my wireless keyboard, the battery's dead, so I just changed batteries. I happen to have like another wireless keyboard right next to me to my left, and I just switched batteries, and it was, I was ready to go. And then I kind of told them that the class, I said, oh, by the way, like I have like 13 or 14 of these portable wireless keyboards I picked up from Amazon, like at various times, like not at the same time. And then
Yeah.
they said this must be expensive. I'm like, well, and I showed them my Amazon record. It was like these keyboards were purchased like, in a couple of years' time. Like there were 13 of them. And then I went through and I said, well, I have one key because, the computers, the keyboard themselves are not comfortable, but these portable wireless keyboards are comfortable for typing. And then I said, I leave one keyboard at one school, I leave another keyboard at another school. That way, when I go there in person, it's set up. I don't have to like carry the same things all over. And then I explained, one time I was teaching and then someone made a noise and I spilled milk on the keyboard and then it didn't work anymore. I had to get another one. And then basically I just started to have one keyboard for every device I'm using. So getting back to that, like, I think in terms of equipment, I'm all set to go. I even bought a couple of screen extenders, is what they're called, and have it set up. So so technology, I think, is okay as long as internet is working, everything's good. Resources, like I said, it's just a matter of trying to be organized. And the desk space is important. I'm trying to declutter, as you can say. So lots of things going on to get ready for the school year.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I
it.
should also mention fans. I have like 5 or 6 desk fans as well. I need those because like rooms can get a little bit stuffy and warm. So desk fans are always good to go.
And you're set. That's like you're getting the equipment for the game. That's actually really good. I well, you know how I work. I typically have only a file with me, and that will contain my lesson plan and maybe handouts, uh, and or a laptop. That's it. Otherwise, my desk is bare. I come in thinking I know what I'm going to be doing. Right? I'll very often be assigned, okay, look, you're teaching this class, and this is the subject. Here are the students. So I'll make assumptions about what my expectations are. Not that that ever, in the long run works out, but that's sort of how I go into it. Do you? I know we work as educators, so you do lesson plans. I do lesson plans. I've got to do one later on tonight for something tomorrow. So that grind will continue. Do you look at how do you view a lesson plan? Is it a guideline, a playbook, or a game plan? How do you put the plan together? What's your mindset when you're doing that?
Well, people might criticize me for this, but I actually print out sheets of paper with like the full month calendar, like so that when you open it up on a binder, right? Um, like on the left side is like Monday, no, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the right hand side is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and on the very far right is like a column for notes, and then like it's like a full month um, planner, if you will. And
Right.
people will say, well, why do you do that? Because everything you can do online, you can do keep track of stuff on your phone and stuff like that. But I actually want to write things out because it's kind of you know it's a way for me to kind of keep track of things. So like I said, when I open it up on a binder, on the left side it's like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the right side of the binder is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then a column for notes. Now on the back of those pages, so if you flip the back, I used to have like like a planner of the previous month and a planner of the next month, but I stopped doing that. Instead, I have when you turn either page, it now has like spaces to write more notes for planning. So basically, like, again, people might think it's a waste of paper and stuff like that if you're printing it like, for 12 months in a year.
Right.
So basically I hand write out like the plan. Okay, if I'm doing a test on Friday or midterm on Friday, okay, what exactly is going to be tested on and how am I going to like break down like the total marks, like what is being tested on, right? If it's a class for writing, let's say, just to keep things simple, I might write down, okay, what are the topics I'm going to go over? I'm going to go over maybe like vague pronouns. And people laugh when I say pronouns, they think they know it all. But then when they see the work, it's like, no, what does the word it mean in this sentence? What does the word that means in this sentence? So I'm talking about vague pronouns. I actually write it out as like a topic, and then I'll have like modifiers or passives or like redundancy, like as the topics that are going to be introduced, and then I might have something broader like summary writing or embedding quotations, using sentence combining techniques without using just the fanboys, right? So basically,
Right.
I map out what is going to be, taught, and then I also write down like which file I have because, like I said, I have a little website set up. It's a WordPress website where I have it's like a private. You need a password to get in. Uh, so then I just figure, okay, I know where it is on like the website. It's like the keyword I would type would be, let's say, I don't know, the keyword might be um, interpersonal or impersonal passives, for example. If I type that in as a search, I can track it number easily on the website, the WordPress site. Again, it's organized in a way, but not enough because um there's just too many files to go over. And I think you suggested to me uh, multiple times before, some of these things you better download onto your own computer because what happens if, the websites get shut down? Let's say, Blogger or some I can't remember what GeoCities. I'm going way back, but there's different web hosting sites that just basically went away, right? So if you've
Yep.
got too many things on that website, like WordPress, for instance, if let's say they just decide to, close down or whatever, then all those things are gone. Well, they give you some warning, like a few months notice, but it's like I said, thousands of files. It's gonna take like several
Yeah.
months to like download everything, right? It's tedious work. It's like it's very robotic if you were to download everything that I have right now. But I do have an Excel, not Excel, but like a Google spreadsheet thing set
Right.
where I put all the links of all these things. But again, I try to get myself organized or keep myself organized, but it's very easy to like mess that up. Yeah, it's so to answer your question, like I do use like a binder with the note paper that I print off. It's not like loose leaf paper. It's actually like white paper that's printer quality
Right.
paper, right? And I write down like what I'm going to go over, like and a lot of these things that these topics, the students think they know it. Like when I bring up like pronouns, some people start laughing or smirking, like I don't know what that's about. And then when I give them like an actual exercise, they could not figure out like for essay writing or writing for college level, like the word it does
Right.
not tie back to anything, right? Or like like that kind of thing. So I do have a list of like passages that I prepared or that I found like in different books that like I make a little note for myself which passage or which article to actually use for that particular day. So I again, it sounds like I'm organized, like the way I'm doing it, but like it's not organized enough because like I'm still like there are things that I have in my head and in my on my website, in my emails that I've already forgotten that they exist.
Right.
I just need a way to like, be more organized. And I even like I know the listeners can't see me, but like when you're talking to me, I'm looking up at something because I have a whiteboard. I have three whiteboards in front of me to keep track of things as well. But it is tough when you have like a lot of things going on. Like it's but I try to do it that way is write those things down and like make little comments about like search keyword on the website or on my in my Gmail accounts. So that's how
Right.
I do it.
Yeah, you've actually raised a couple of really important issues, and one of them is, well, yes, and I remember distinctly. I think it was a few times when I said, yeah, make sure that you somehow make either physical copies or take whatever lesson plans you have and put them on even on a floppy if you have to, whatever. Yeah, and I've got that. If you just come into my living room, there's a box of old lesson plans, and I've got everything on disk. I actually find a really good use for the old technology, and it comes in. We seem to have a lot of faith in as technology goes forward, it always creates a benefit. We always see the benefit, not the plus, not the minus. And I'll give you some really good examples of how I kind of saw the value in the older technology. I've got a whole lot of friends who keep whining that their favorite music they can't access anymore because it's been sold from one site to another site, or the platform that they were using has been discontinued, or the licensing is now taking their favorite music to another distributor, whatever the case is. All of those problems disappear if you buy, you know, even an 8-track tape, but yeah, a DVD or a disc or a record. So yeah, technology and incorporating it into the game and making it part of the lesson plan. I always say I think it works. I think it's great. I've got no problem with storing files on temporary platforms, but I'm the guy who's always either printing out or backing up.
Right.
And sure, yeah, they have to be adapted. You have to be updated. There are new students, new interests. Curriculum's been slightly tweaked, so things have to change. Things have to change a little bit. Yeah, so you kind of raised that point. Now that was actually one issue that I wanted to explore. Another one was I'm going to ask this. It's sort of a two-part question. How much of a use do you have for or believe there is in technology in the classroom?
That's the first part. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
are you okay? Sure. You know, for me, right? I am very against cheating. So the use of technology, like, you know, I can see it when people bring in a piece of written work and it's like not the style that they speak or like not the same as previous work. I can tell like they use something like Chat GPT or whatever it's called to quote unquote write it. Like I've tested it out before. You punch in some things and it literally takes like a second to produce something. Now I I am very against cheating. Like it's like, you know, I'm sure that some teachers will allow it, but I just don't know that, technology should be used extensively in the classroom. I mean, there are some cases where, you need it for, for certain things, but like, I just find that, if you have technology, if you rely on technology in the classroom, like people would just cheat. They would cheat, and like again, like I tested it out myself. It's not always perfect, and I brought this up to you before. Like I put in something like, "So tell me about the Vic Wertz catch in the 1954 World Series." But it's a Willie Mays catch, right? But Chat GPT actually put it, yes, Vic Wertz made a great catch in the 1954 World Series, robbing Willie Mays of a double. It was backwards. But I purposely put it in just to, or I would make a sentence, I'll make a request like this. Okay, give me an absolute sentence. And then Chat GPT will give like a totally wrong thing. And I'm like, no, excuse me. The form is noun plus verb ing, comma, and then subject plus verb clause. And I type in like an example and I say, okay, now do it. Give me 10 examples of an absolute sentence. And it will give me like garbage. And I'll be like in capital letters, like, excuse me, no, this is wrong. But that, it's programmed to do certain things, but not other things. And like I said, if like I don't want to really say this out loud, but I'm sure people already do it. If I say like, here's an essay topic, enter. It will produce something within like a second.
Right.
So it is scary, right? And I had this, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I had a student just recently, like several weeks ago, I gave like, it was like a story, a narrative story about a baseball glove, like
Right.
telling the readers its experience, like its personification, like, extended like metaphors throughout this passage. And I'm like, okay, so, and I'm very careful of making the documents, even if it's online. I'm a way to make it that you cannot copy and paste it, right? So, like for example, I might print it out and then scan it and then upload it online. That way, they cannot copy and paste. So I
Right.
let him read. I let the class read, the narrative essay on this baseball glove talking to the readers about its experience, right? And then I gave a couple other examples. These ones that I actually typed out and on like a Google document, and then download it as PDF and upload it to my website. But though like the latter examples, I did not disable the copy and paste. So, and then I said, okay, now here's the task. After you've read these, essays, I would like you to imagine that you're an object, like anything, and write from the point of view of that thing and include dialogue, include like personification of all these hyperbole, all these different things. Now, this kid, this student was very smart, right? And he's a hardworking student, but he said he just wanted to experiment with something. And then he basically what he did was he took that the second example essay that I did not disable the copy and paste function, right? You go control A, control C. So he copied and pasted the whole thing into like chat GPT. And within seconds, he produced exactly like the same the structure. Everything the same structure. Like if you put my second example beside his, it was identical in terms of like the first paragraph had the same number of sentences, the same structure. Like his story was about like a broken chair, I think, or no, it was like a plastic bag. Mine was like a broken chair. The
Right.
second example that I produced, right? But again, like this kind of thing, I know that people do it. Like it's you know how I guess the trick is how can you like stop it or because these um apps or whatever they're called, these program software, right? They're also smart enough to like detect plagiarism, um checks, right? It's even advertised on Facebook or online, like social media, Twitter, X, Instagram. They have these ads that come out and say like this young person is bragging about how he got an A in his on his essay in English class, and because he's using this thing similar to Chat GPT, where you have an account, they can produce your essay. Well, he didn't say it that way, but like refine your essay for you, but pretty much they can write the whole thing for you, and then they can do like the tone check. They can do like the plagiarism check as well, so that your teacher will not be able to detect like that kind of stuff is like BS, right? Like, um, I don't know, like it just is wrong. I mean, so I'm sure I've shared this with you before. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I hope I have addressed the first part of your question, your two-part question. But I think that it has to be limited. Like technology in the classroom has to be limited. But then you might have, teachers that don't care. They're like, whatever. They just I had a teacher before when I was a high school student. He just let the students do whatever they want, and he was I don't know what the heck he was doing at his desk. Um, and the students are playing like cards or doing some other thing that he didn't care. Like I had teachers literally like did not care like in high school. Like that's why like if you were to ask me, I know I'm getting off topic. If you were to ask me like if I had any like high school teachers that inspired me, I'm gonna say no because I personally thought they did not care. Like I was, picked on quite often. I don't think anybody cared about that. Um,
Right.
but anyway, that's going off topic. But the point is, I have a feeling that a lot of teachers don't care that students cheat. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. Well, at least where we are here in British Columbia, apparently we have a lot of students and not enough teachers, and I guess that's contributing to what I suspect would be some teachers leaving the profession. I mean, I don't know, I don't have statistics, but I think if there's so much work to be done and no relief, that's probably more of an incentive to leave than it is to stay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, no, you've actually raised some really you answered the question. I think the perils of technology in the classroom um, is something that we have to deal with. And by that I mean not just you and I. Anybody who is involved and working in our profession should be aware of or being made aware of what's going on and the problems that technology can pose. And so I was going to ask, and this was the second part of the question was, yeah, I think here in British Columbia, with the beginning of the new academic year, there will be either, and this is what I'm not clear on, either outright bans or restrictions on accessibility to technology in classrooms. I think it's cell phones and possibly laptops, although I'm not sure. So, and that'll probably have an interesting effect on what goes on. And I'm just wondering if you've noticed any, say, differences with your students. Are they beginning to kind of have anxiety issues over the fact that they won't be able to take a telephone and a laptop into a classroom?
The only anxiety they have is, oh, damn, I have to go back to school. I don't want to go back to school. I hate it. I think that's pretty much what I'm hearing. Well, no, to be honest with you, I think it's just the usual dread of, ending your summer vacation and going back to school. Like some students, like they don't want to see their classmates again because they have some like beef with them, right? Or
Right.
just they don't want to go back to school. It's I have not encountered anybody yet that has raised the thing about technology. Again, um, I think if there's going to be restrictions, that's a step in the right direction. There are ways that people will be able to cheat. And I think, I've shown you like from different websites, like teacher websites from other schools in other provinces or in the United States where like this teacher's on the ball, he has a list of these instructions, right? You must not use technology in my classroom unless you ask for permission. You're responsible for getting the homework of that day if you missed class, right? You may not come in like say X number of minutes late unless you have a permission slip from your previous teacher or the counselor. So there are teachers out there who actually do have like who are strict, and I think that is important to have rules. And then I think that without rules, without these types of restrictions, students will just do whatever they want, and it's not a good thing to not a good like example to set. I know that these days, like not just school, but in anything, it's like people are more like children are pampered more than ever. It's like you have to have a participation trophy even if you lose, right? You cannot
Right.
be too strict with your students. The people like business leaders are saying, well, copying from each other is not cheating. It's like called collaboration, things that you have to
Yeah.
do in the workplace anyway. Like, I think that's just a lot of BS to be honest with you. But I showed you before, like business leaders, well, have a successful business. People have posted this on LinkedIn before, right? Like copying is not cheating. It's just a way of getting, to the destination point or whatever, however, whatever rhetoric they want to like paint or describe it as so I think that it's great if there are more restrictions. It's just again to if you get out into the workforce, maybe like we've discussed this before in previous episodes. Like if you're lucky, you get nepotism works in your favor. You get hired into a company where you know the people and they know you, they like you, and then you do whatever you want. There are people like that. They can have a successful life, working if they find the right people in their community that, where they get that kind of like pampering, right? It does happen, but hopefully, when others get into the real world, they see that, you can't just whine and cry and get whatever you want. It's, you know, but again,
Yeah.
I told you it happens, right? And not picking anybody. Like I told you about this person before in a company that I worked in. She was just doing online shopping or like watching Korean drama for like 8 hours a day. And then there are coworkers, male coworkers, willing to just do her work for her, right? It happens, right? It's if you are lucky, quote unquote, lucky in that way, then nobody will ever expose you, and you have a successful career, you move up the ladder and so on because other people are willing to just help you and not, you know, um, rat on you, right? But
Yeah. Yeah, no, wow, yeah, yeah, a lot of interesting issues. Yeah, I think, yeah, technology is maybe, take what you just said, something that helps pamper people to the extent that they maybe even convince themselves or start to believe that they have certain skills that they clearly and obviously don't. Yeah, if you punch in a few keys or punch a few keys and produce an essay, you could actually begin to think that you were the one who actually did the work. You're not, you are contributing nothing. So I think maybe what'll happen, this is kind of interesting now with, again, the restrictions or bans that are now being put in place. It'll be interesting to see what happens when students are confronted by certain realities. If you have to do your work at your desk on a piece of paper without any technology, that might actually indicate that, yeah, that talent you thought you had might not actually be there. So might be facing an interesting year. It's kind of like, yeah, to take an analogy, a sports team or a group of athletes believing that they have a certain skill set and finding out the hard way that they don't.
Well, okay, if you're referring to, let's say, the league offices say we're going to start testing for, you know, PEDs or steroids or something, sure, yeah, you take away the juice, maybe some people cannot perform at the same level. Yeah, yeah, I can totally see that. Like, I guess in that sense, that one is kind of like tricky because we'll get back to the learning stuff in a moment because I find that it's hypocritical of the fans. The fans are complaining, well, the team is paying like 15 million to this guy and he's hitting 200. He can't hit home
Yeah,
runs. But then let's say if he decides to take the juice and he starts hitting, and then when he gets found out, and then the same people will turn on him and say, like, what is he doing? Right? There's is like pressure to perform, right?
right,
But in the case of students as well, I guess it's similar in the sense that like it just is an example, right? Let's say family immigrates to Canada and they don't speak English. Well, of course, the parents expect this student or child to go to an Ivy League university at some point, but then like putting a lot of pressure. I guess maybe the student might feel compelled to cheat, especially if the parents keep talking to them in their own native language and do not encourage them to actually learn English or French or whatever the case is, right? We'll just say English in this case in British Columbia. So there is a little bit of that where while um, the student is expected to perform at a high level, and then if there's a way to cheat, they'll do it. But the parents are just not like providing a good environment or setting a good example because they're not encouraging. Like again, it goes back to pampering, right? If let's say I've encountered parents who would say this, well, I'd like you to actually raise my child's confidence level. Like, don't be too hard on him or her. I've heard that. I've heard direct requests like that. So
right,
when you're being told to pamper them, right, because the ego can't take it, that they find ways to cheat, right? It's the same thing as like a baseball manager sits down a player because he's not producing. There's a different scenario, and his ego can take it, and he wants to be traded. In this case, the student gets told, "Oh, by the way, like you need to do it this way, not your way." And his or her ego can take it and they want to go transfer to another class, right? The parents
right,
a lot of times um will kind of like support the side of their kids, I find. So,
right,
so it's just again about the idea of being pampered, about how like you have to like you have to actually pamper not those words are not used, but the idea is to pamper the kid and like to raise the confidence level of the student, which we do, but it's like
right,
basically like don't be um like basically you hand out participation trophies is like a good way of relaying the point, right? So
right. We're teaching entitlement, not skill. And but the parent who wants the um, actually, I'm going to go off topic for just a second as well. But I'll get back to that. The parent who wants um, everything to be uh, agreeable for the student, I think misses the idea that muscle, including intellectual muscle, is built through resistance training. So it's not something that is necessarily a comfortable experience. I'm sort of going back to boy, how different my schooling was. I had teachers who were ex-military, and the same thing in university. So I never got asked about my feelings. Nobody ever asked me about my self-esteem, and that wasn't something that was part of that experience for me. But which is not to say that those aren't important issues, but you found them elsewhere. You kind of knew that the classroom had one function, and it wasn't necessarily to make sure that your feelings were aligned with your objectives. That wasn't part of it. That part wasn't part of it. But sometimes actually, I did have this, something you said tweaked this memory. But about 3 years ago, when somebody said, that's kind of hard. You're being hard on the students. Wait, are you always going to be way too hard? And my response was, well, no, resistance is, there has to be sort of a passive and a kind of a forward and a push. It's a push and a pull. So it's got nothing to do with being one static thing all the time. And as a teacher, I kind of have to say to myself, I have to gauge where the students are at a particular point in the lesson and adjust my reaction to that. So yeah, sometimes I'm really driving them, and at other times I'm sort of laying back. And then again, interestingly, the parent came back with, well, that's no good either because you're confusing them. So it's no good when you do one thing, but it's no good when you do the opposite. And I found that an interesting reaction. So I'm wondering if you've ever experienced anything quite like that. And I kind of went, well, that's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance issue. I don't have it, the parent has it. But anyway, that's
I think I've been told before, like I think people think that like people have said to me like you look like you're in a bad mood today and you're a little bit stricter than on days when you are in a good mood when you're happier. Well, I mean, I think there is a difference because like if students are producing good work, you want to you want to praise them and be, like, high-fiving them and stuff like that. But
right.
you're not going to overdo that because they will get lazy and like and on days when they're not doing well and clearly there's something wrong, of course, you're going to be a little bit more strict and serious. I think that happens. Like, but people will think that it's like, well, you're in a good mood today versus in a bad mood the other day, like, um,
Right.
so that it's to do with like reaction, like you said, and even within the same class, I am hard on certain students and easy on certain students. It depends on how they're doing. Like, um, again, it sounds like it's not fair or whatever, but again, if I expect more out of somebody, I will tell them. Like, I expect, you to be able to do more. And as someone who might be struggling, at times I'll be like a little bit more encouraging. Like if they got, a few questions right, I might be, but I'm not doing that every time. Like by let's say by the fourth or fifth time we've done this, I actually expect you to retain some of this. And if you're still doing the same thing, I'm gonna be, talking to you in a different tone, right? Like
Yep.
I can't. Like if you tell me something and we talk off air, like you told me something before I remember it. Why? Because it's normal to remember things. You told me something about, dishwashing, and I remembered this is like years ago. I've remembered it. You told me something about like downloading things from websites in case they disappear. I remember that conversation, right? If I'm teaching you, okay, you got to do this way with your, let's say, writing, and then after like 10 times of telling you, and you're still like not doing, I'm thinking that, well, you don't care about what you're doing, or you're just being lazy or something, right?
Right.
So that's, I'm gonna have a more serious conversation with you after we've gone through, it enough times. Again, people will criticize me and say, well, you just don't know how to teach. I've literally heard that before. But then again, okay, it's like it's like the fans say, well, you strike out too much. Okay, sure, I'll give you my bat, I'll give you my batting gloves and my helmet. You stand at the plate and
Right,
let the pitcher throw 100 miles per hour at your head and see if you are able to hit. I mean, I
right.
don't get like people are like critics are very negative. I find that like when you do something that people don't agree with, they're ready to attack you or just be negative. Like, I mean, I don't really go out of my way to talk about these things, but we're having a discussion here. That's why I'm bringing it up. That like I literally expect like we're not talking about 80-year-old students. We're talking about like teenagers who you expect like they're going into university, right? You expect them to like develop good habits and remember things. Because again,
Right.
it goes back to if they think, well, I'm just gonna use I'm not I shouldn't even mention those apps or software names. I'm gonna go to this app and just punch in a few words and duh, my homework is done for me. Like if that's all they're thinking, right? Or they think like if I try and be cute, I try to be like charming, that I can get away with whatever I want. But it just like it is something that I think yeah, I do treat different students differently and different days are different. Like, today I might be charming and helpful and encouraging, but on Monday I was literally like raising my voice and saying like how come you guys are doing this when we've talked about this numerous times, right? Like um it's like you guys are not 80 years old, right? It just boggles my mind. Like I said, like I can remember conversations that you and I have had like
Yeah.
years ago about dishwashing, right? I mentioned this off air earlier, or like websites and things, download things before they go away. Like these are just very random things, but I remember conversations with different people about what we said. I mean, I'm sure maybe their mind. Well, I don't want to speculate, but I find it very interesting that different people cannot retain certain information. Like they, you know, I'm not a psychologist. Maybe I shouldn't comment too much on that, but I just as an instructor, I think you are frustrated, and
Yeah.
students see that, people see that. When I'm raising my voice, they see that like they think I'm in a bad mood. But
Right.
well, I'm in a bad mood because of this.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
no, but it may not be a bit. No, but what you're getting at is there's an issue here that doesn't require a degree in psychology, and I think with what we do and how long we've been involved in teaching, there is something about uh, human behavior that we've picked up along the way. And yes, you're right. When you're dealing with students and I think it's pretty easy to figure out when a student is having a bad day for reasons that are not related to anything academic. There could be a really big personal crisis, so you don't blow up at that. But when encounter the kind of student who will, and you know that they have certain skills and you know that they have a certain talent level, and you explain a concept, you explain it again, and then you do it a third time, you provide two examples, and then you give them an exercise, and their response is, and this literally happened today, well, I don't know. Then
Oh,
it's no longer time to be positive and encouraging. It's time to suggest to the student that something else needs to get done in a completely different way. But yeah, and I don't think that requires a degree in psychology.
I mean, interesting you mentioned that. Sort of cut you off, but I literally had like I was talking to you about a parent who was saying like, please like instill confidence in my child, right? And this student will be like every time I would basically try to open up the class by saying, okay, tell me what you did. Like I want to know like about your hobbies, like how like what you did with your family the day
Right.
before. Literally every answer was I don't know. It's like, okay, if you're trying to be cute, okay, like maybe a couple times is okay, but like this happens repeatedly, like my tone changed and I said like if you're gonna do this, we're gonna have a conversation with your parents. I said, right? You
Yeah.
can't be doing that. And then whatever, right? But then I had a different student who was the same thing. I don't know if this is just like common now. People think it's funny or it's cute, and I say it's not funny, but I'll be like asking the same thing, right? Like, so tell me about like what you like to do, right? Tell me about your cats that um, I don't know. Okay, all right, like okay, like what did you eat for dinner yesterday? I don't know. Like literally, like every answer was like not caring, like we have a problem, right? If you're gonna have
Right.
that kind of like attitude, we're gonna have a more serious discussion about that, right? Like, I mean, it's. I understand if we're doing something completely boring, but then even if I'm trying to like warm up the lesson by talking about things that you should be kind of excited about to talk about your cat or talk about something you ate and you're giving that vibe of I don't know or literally saying that I don't know and then like you know what it's we have a little problem yeah right all
Yeah,
right
we no, you're right. We do have a problem. Yeah, that was the scenario. It was literally the I don't know, today, and then that was when I adjusted the way that I was delivering the lesson plan. But yeah, and again, in the instance that occurred today, it was not a case of something was going on with a student. It was just I think he decided, yeah, I don't feel like doing this,
right
and that was the entire justification. And I think most of life, and unfortunately, this is a lesson that's not taught soon enough to people. Most of life is not really doing things that you necessarily want to do. You're going to find that you're going to be spending a lot of time doing things because you have to
right
for whatever reason. And these are we're talking about young adults here. We're talking about people who are on the cusp of entering university and they haven't learned that basic lesson. Ooh, that's going to pose a problem.
yeah and I mentioned earlier like I looked at other teachers websites from other provinces other like in from the States, United States, and I borrowed this line from one of the teachers like classroom expectation list is something like you may not like what we're doing in class. You don't have to like it. We don't expect you to like everything that we do, but this is an important life lesson. Quite often in life, you have to do things that you don't like, and you may or you will encounter something like this in this class. I'm paraphrasing, right? I wrote it out on my own like classroom expectations, like it's something along those lines, right? Like you may not like everything that we do in the class, like and in fact, we don't expect you to like everything,
Right,
but this is what we're doing for the purposes of this class, and it's an important life lesson that you will encounter situations where you don't like something, let's say in the workplace, but it's something you have to do.
right,
I'm paraphrasing what I wrote and what I saw on that particular teacher's like website, but it's a good thing to explain like right off the bat on the first day, and like it's just you don't have to like it, but that's life, right? You still have to do it if you want to get the marks, if you want to pass the course, if you want to like keep your job or whatever,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
No, yeah, and again, I that was a lesson that I was taught fairly early on. I mean, long before. Well, I mean, maybe at about the time that I entered junior high, we kind of knew. Well, there's certain things we'll be studying or certain things we'll be doing, not because we necessarily want to or like them, but we have goals that go beyond this experience, and in order to get to those other goals, we have to go through this process. That's all kind of gone now. I think there is really an expectation that things are catered to one's tastes, feelings, and emotions. And I don't know that I'm not sure that's very helpful when it comes to learning. I mean, I don't I'm not minimizing or disqualifying emotions and feelings and self-esteem, but at the same time, if they are completely displacing certain elements of reality, then we have more than a small problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, okay, I'm gonna read it. This is verbatim. I'm just gonna read this out. This is one point I have, right? Um, have a good attitude. You might not like everything that you have to read or write in this class, but understand you still need to do it, even if you
Yeah,
don't like that work. This is a great life lesson. We do not expect you to like English class, but we expect you to have good work habits and a mature outlook. That means be a responsible individual.
right,
Basically, I include that little passage in the classroom expectations, right? And if it's an online class, like I said, like focus on the class. Like don't do other things, like turn on your camera by
right.
heart, be on time, all these different things. But I don't necessarily want to remind people, but I there were times when I had to bring this sheet out again and remind them again, like, by the way, this point here, right? But yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you're saying. And the attitude, they're gonna run. They may run into problems down the road. But again, I say they may because again, some people in the world they're lucky if they benefit from nepotism, right? Maybe their parents are friends with a dean, or their parents are friends with the company that's going to hire them in their community, right? So there are some people who I guess are going to be lucky and don't have to learn or suffer from their behavior. But again, those people are lucky.
Yeah, or maybe everybody learns, but maybe it's the case that many people learn, far far too late.
Sure, sure. I don't want to be too negative and like doubt that they will, reform, but sure. Uh,
Oh wow, yeah. So again. There's a lot of profound insight about what goes on in a classroom that we covered today, KP. This was absolutely brilliant. I want to leave it on one question though. This one is now balancing your personal goals. I know you're a great writer, and I know you love to write. And how are you now that we're both about to walk back into a classroom, going to balance your teaching time and your writing time?
um, that's a great question, but the thing is not just teaching and writing. There's all the other things happening in life. Like I'm sure I showed you screenshots, or I've been talking about this with you. Like I love sports, right? I write about sports. I love sports. Now, there's this app. I'm not gonna say the name. It's a gambling app, right? You
Right.
can literally like watch every out of market Major League Baseball game,
Yeah.
like literally every like out of market Major League Baseball game on this app, as long as they have like a positive balance. I think even if you have like 20 cents, you can
Right.
watch all the games. This takes a lot of time. Like it's very time consuming, and being a fan of the game, when there's live baseball, I am sucked in quite often. I don't know. Actually, I didn't send you like an interesting play that happened last night in Washington where I was seeing this like Washington had runners on first and second, and the guy hits a double to the wall. Aaron
Ooh.
Judge, the Yankees couldn't catch it, but the
Yeah.
runner at second did not run, and he was
Ooh.
eventually tagged out on the way home.
Ooh.
And then the batter who hit that double, it wasn't a double because he got tagged out between first and second. So they
Oh.
didn't score at all in that inning, and the ball hit the wall, and it was like double play.
Right.
And they
And
did not, but Washington hung on to win that game. And then you're like trying to search for like replays of this online and trying to like watch it again. And then like or like share this video with someone. I didn't share it with you because yeah, I didn't think you'd be interested in that.
so
but
that one.
uh, yeah, and I did take screenshots and show you. Oh, look, like behind home plate, there are these like advertisement of like bet MGM or like on the left side, on the right side, or in the outfield wall. I took a screenshot and showed you like there's an advertisement of bet 365 on the outfield wall, and I sent it to you. I sent those to you. Like, right, this distracts from what I'm doing with writing. But also, like NFL season is coming up in September. Same thing. You
Yeah.
can get like every game that's on like on this app, right? It's very distracting. Like your entire Sunday could be wiped out just because of that. But there's also going back to doing hockey play by play. So I'll be spending time doing that. The funny thing is, of course, I do like write-ups of each game, and like I
Right.
push myself to do it because like there's a deadline to like post it on the team's website. So I actually like pressure myself to do it. Um,
Right.
but with the writing specifically, I think what I need is somebody to say, "Hey, KP, how many pages have you written today?" Like I had a coworker at Nat Bailey Stadium years ago. I had a coworker who like literally every time he saw me, he's like, "So, how's your writing? Like, how many pages did you write?" When I hear something like that, it literally pushes me to like actually get something done. I don't have that today. And before the
Um,
pandemic, I don't know if I told you this story. Before the pandemic, I was always with my laptop hanging out at Waves or Starbucks, um, different coffee shops. I had have something to eat, and I can see these university students like working on their business project or school project, science project, and that actually pushes me. I don't know any of them. I don't talk to any of them. They don't know me.
right.
But when I see like people are trying to get their project done, I think I can do better than them. Right? I can myself, I can produce great work that's better than them, even though I don't know what the heck they're doing, but I know they're discussing some business project for SFU or for UBC or whatever university they're from. That
Right.
pushes me to do work. But the pandemic hit, and then you had to stay at home. And then when you're staying at home, like
Oh,
I'm distracted. Like other writers will say it's great for them. It does not work for me because I'm just there's nothing to push me, nobody to push me. That is a problem. Like when I finished writing the Barry Bonds book, I was pushed because I knew there was a deadline coming up, right?
right.
But if there's no deadline, I don't have to submit a story about the hockey team that I'm covering, you know, before a certain time, like the deadline helps, or people that reminds you, like I said, that one coworker that I encountered, like you know, during summers, like at Nat Bailey Stadium, like he was, so how's your writing? Like, what did you write today? Like, he didn't I don't think he knew what he was doing in terms of motivating me, but to hear something like that could push me. Like it's something is like, and then on the other hand, you have someone like says, like someone will say, "Oh, what are you writing about these days?" And then I say it, and then the person will scoff and like kind of like whatever, and then that can deflate me or it could push me. It depends on the situation, right? So
Right.
things that people say can or will have an influence or have an effect on me because I'm a person, I'm not a robot, right? I cannot just
Right.
throw out what someone says. I need to be motivated just like anybody, right? So if nobody's pushing me, it gets hard with life and other things that are going on.
Oh,
But
wow.
I will say that there were days, weeks. This is now weeks ago, where I actually did not touch that app, that gambling app, and I
Yep.
actually did work for like several days in a row. I actually wrote things, but then again, I think something came up, and then I just stopped. And when you stop, it just that streak continues. It's just like if you are on a roll, you do it several days in a row, but then
Right.
something interrupts it, and then you just go one day without doing it, and then I stop doing it. So it's tough. It is tough. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with that.
It is so something you said reminded me. Well, I should start asking. Every couple of weeks I'll ask, well, so what have you written today, or how much writing have you been doing? That is now that gets you motivated. That might sort of keep things going. Somebody actually had a really good. Now this is going way back when I was a graduate student, and somebody said that writing the dissertation, uh, I'll actually use his first real name, John. And he said it was the easiest thing he'd ever done. And I thought, there I was, trying to figure out how to put, a book together based on, a year of research, based on, going through piles of documents, secondary sources. And he said, well, separate out the research. What he literally said to me was separate out the research part from the writing part. And I go, okay, so you do the research, you do what you have to do, and then when you write, um, his secret was, he said, all I did was over the course of a year and a half, I just said to myself, I'm going to write 250 words every day. And when I reach the 250 word count, I stop. And it literally feels like I've almost done nothing. But then next day and for the day after that and for the day after that, I'll just keep going and keep going and keep going. And he said, well, yeah. And, after about a year and a half, I had something that was like 90 odd thousand words long that I had to trim back to about 75,000. And
Huh.
easiest thing I ever did. That was his comment and his response. And I
Right.
kind of thought about it and I went, yeah, if you could, 250 words. And then I thought about when I was working in the newsroom and, 500 word briefing papers you do in an hour. And I said, 250 words, I could do that on a break. I could do 250 words. And then it sort of dawned on me that, yeah, that must feel like it's almost effortless. I
I
think I'm going to try it.
and then I didn't even say this, but now they mention it, I think what works for different people, it's just different, right? And I can also tell you, like I used to like take the bus to go to UBC,
Yeah.
Universal British Columbia, find a spot and sit down and use the Wi-Fi because it's public Wi-Fi, and then just be able to like sit down, produce things, look at people that are walking around, like look
Right.
at those university students. I think like, I have the mindset of like I'm gonna work hard. I couldn't do that with Simon Fraser University in Burnaby because the Wi-Fi, you had to have a password. I'm not a student, so it did not work. There were years before, like when you had like it was Bell or Rogers, they sold these like USB sticks you can plug in and they'll give you like internet service. I used to do that when I went to SFU with my own portable internet, but then they stopped producing those things. And I could do that at the SFU downtown in downtown Vancouver. I did that.
Right.
I did that at like KPU. Again, the Wi-Fi was free, the public
Right.
Wi-Fi, no password needed. When I was in Richmond, right after teaching or before teaching, like those work. And this was before the pandemic. Like when the pandemic happened, everything changed, right? Your habits changed. I don't think now I want to go to a coffee shop and sit there and do stuff, right? I mean, I could, but then I don't really want to anymore. Or I
Right.
could, sit in a mall food court and do that. But again, I don't really necessarily want to do that. But I think habits change, and the pandemic changed like a lot. I'm not excited to be out, all the time if I don't have to be.
Yeah.
That's where I did a lot of work, like at UBC or at coffee shops, waves, whatever. Like seeing those university students like in action, it kind of pushed me. Even though I don't did not know them, they did not know me. I did not talk to them one bit. There's something that the vibe or the environment
Right.
helped a great deal. And even like now, like when I come home from working at like a sporting venue because I have seasonal work that I do sometimes. And after I come home at 10 o'clock, I just don't want to do anything the rest of the night. Like I'm just sitting up maybe for 2 hours, like staring in his face. I'm like mentally, I don't feel like I want to do something, and then, but I don't want to go to sleep either. So I'm wasting like a couple hours. Maybe I go to bed at 1 or 2, right? But there's a lot of time being wasted. But I will try to. You know what? This current project I'm working on, I've shared some thoughts with you about already. I'm writing about 16 baseball players.
Yep.
I have 15. I have photos of 15 of them. There's one
Yep.
player. I'm not gonna say the team. It's not the team that I told you before. There's one
Oh,
team.
well, that's right. Yeah, you told me about the other team that didn't,
No,
but then it did.
but
Yes.
then I
Okay.
worked around it. No, there's one player I don't have access to photos of, but I contacted the major league teams that he played for, but they did not respond to me, which is very annoying. I wrote to one famous minor league AAA baseball team that he played for and still exists today. They said it's going to take a long time to find it. And I said, can I use like a photo that I found online uh, and use it? And he's wearing your team's uniform. He never got back to me about that.
Mm,
So that can be annoying, right? But
right.
the thing is, if somebody sends me a photo, then the pressure is on. The pressure is on for me to get everything done. Because see, maybe that's what I need. I need that one team or any of his previous teams to email me a photo, and then that will be a push. Oh, I got all the photos I need. I gotta actually get this done now. Right now at 15 photos, I'm still like, I may not use a photo of that 16th person, which will be kind of goofy, but I'll write it in the acknowledgments that what happened,
Right.
right? I
Let,
did, yeah. So
I was just gonna say, let's hope you get the picture of the minor league uniform. That would,
I don't know, like they did not respond. I've asked them twice now. I'm sure, like, there's one major league team I told you about that said, well, their legal department said they're not able to provide photos of that particular team that is in a national league right now. That's in a hunt for the playoffs, um, in the East. Maybe I shouldn't say that much, but it's like a prominent team that has been very successful in the last couple of decades. But they said
right.
the legal department. Well, I worked around that and I got like two photos from two different like reporters who covered the team and said, "Yeah, you can use this photo of this particular player." Yeah, all right. So I worked around it and did it that way. But sometimes, like when you face a problem, you just have to work around it. I have not been able to work around staying motivated to work every day on the writing part. I just need a push.
There we go. Well, as I said, every couple of weeks, I think I'll just kind of ask what's going on there.
Yeah.
That should hopefully motivate. Yeah, this has been fascinating. This has been fantastic. So now we've explored. We've done it from the vantage point of what do we do as educators and motivators, and sort of flipped it to what happens when we maybe take the environment in which we do what we do and assess what its impact is on students who will be developing themselves for some future greatness, whatever that may be. This has been a fascinating discussion. This has really been very, very interesting. A couple of things that are swirling around that I actually want to save for a later date. No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, KP. That was brilliant. KP, I want to follow up with this, but that'll sort of take everything. Well, actually, one of the things I want to talk about is going to take it off in a slightly different tangent. So this is a perfect place to kind of pause and say, I think I can already workshop a part two. Thank you so much. And I want to thank our listeners so much. Thank you all. And again, have a great day. Have a wonderful day. I really, really appreciate you listening. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be your guest host. And now I will turn the podcast over to its rightful host and today's guest, Mr. KP Wee. KP?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And to finish off, that was Stan Markotich, a former news director and currently an educator in British Columbia, Canada. Stan was kind enough to join this program and act as co-host. And we look forward to speaking with Stan again. And that's again Stan Markotich. You can catch previous episodes of this podcast wherever you get your audio entertainment. And again, thank you for tuning in to the KPW podcast. We will talk to you again next time.